Good morning. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene. And today we are talking about stealing from other tabletop RPGs?
Right.
As in going into the books and just stealing it outright?
Stealing it outright.
I assume you're not going to try to publish it if you do that.
Well, yeah, I guess you could
Although
not do that.
a lot of the things you're talking about are mechanics, right? What mechanics you like from different...
Right, or even some concepts, I guess. Some of them are just ideas.
Ideas in the dark.
Sometimes, yes. So somebody was saying, what are some ideas that you find in one RPG that you would use in all your other RPGs that you run as a GM? And I'm not sure I would use all of these in other RPGs, but sure, but you could sure use them in other RPGs every once in a while, or in certain RPGs.
The funny thing is when you said it, I was like, ooh, I know the one thing that I really, really love is the shot clock in Feng Shui. Only because I think it's a cool mechanic, right? Because it's an initiative tracker, but it's very cool because every time you do a move, wherever you are on that shot clock, it goes 3 down. And I always like that. There's other mechanics for initiative that Shadowrun has something similar. You roll and you get a certain amount. Like it goes 10 down though. So like if you roll a 32, you would get 1, 2, 3 turns. Where if you rolled a 12, you would get 2 turns. And if you rolled under a 10, you'd only get 1 turn.
Correct.
So those are 2 mechanics that I thought about when you said that.
I did not think about either one of those when I was writing these down. And I read it I guess I was reading on Reddit, and some people had some different ideas of games that I hadn't played, but I do have in my library, so I looked them up, and indeed, they're there. So I think when you find something you really like in one RPG, sometimes you're inclined to try to use that in other RPGs. And I think for the most part, depending on how intricate or how embedded it is in a certain system, then like the shot clock, right? That's embedded in Feng Shui, where other games already have other initiative systems that would work. And the shot clock is just a visual representation of counting down. The difference is that in Feng Shui, three shots is what typically would take to do something, but you could do something that would take longer, like jump up into the sky or something like that, or run up a building and then attack somebody. So I would say, well, that's more than 3 shots than just attacking somebody or shooting somebody. I'd say that's 5 shots. So that increment, the number of shots it takes to do something is variable. Though a lot of times for expediency, I would just say it's 3 shots. But every once in a while, somebody would say, I want to do this. I'm like, okay, next time you act, that's going to take 4 shots. Or I would say 5, and they're like thinking about it.
Is it
worth it to them, or is it not worth it to them? And most time it is, and so they do it anyway. So I think that's what I really like about the shot clock, even though I did not put it into this.
And I'm not so sure that it would port into other games as well. I mean, every D&D has initiative, right? And you just go in turn order. Some games don't even have initiative, or you go as a group and you get to choose who goes first, right? And a lot of people like that.
Right.
But as a visual, I think that's a cool one. I don't know that it would work in any other game, but when you said stealing stuff from other tabletop RPGs, I was thinking, well, that is one of the things that I really enjoy about playing Feng Shui.
I think you could probably do that in other games and it not suffer. Like you could probably do it in D&D. And the only difference is that the shot clock, the person who rolls the most, that's how many shots there is in the whole thing. And then what happens is that that's a whole turn. And then once that turn is over, you roll again. So it varies. It goes up and down. It's similar to, like you said, of Shadowrun.
Yeah. So what ones did you see that other people were talking about?
Well, Circles was one, because I don't own Burning Wheel.
Well, you'll have to tell me what that is, because...
Circles is contacts. But Burning Wheels is such a cool game. and I use that term loosely. Well, Burning Wheel certainly has a certain following, and the creator is, I don't know how I would describe him, but he's very likes coming up with his own terms and stuff, and so he kind of puts a little different spin on it. Anyway, so circles is like contacts.
So it'll be like your circle of friends.
Well, not necessarily friends, but people that
I'm just saying that that's where he would get the term.
I guess
from.
the circle of friends. You're in a family circle. I forgot the name of that movie with De Niro and
I'm looking at him with a blank look on
Meet
my
the
face.
Fockers was the name of the movie where he goes it's an inner circle of the family. And
I
this and
see.
that. So anyway, circles, contacts. So this is something that can easily be used in other games, other than Burning Wheel. And I was thinking when I first read this, and somebody said, "Oh, they're just contacts," and I go, "Well, that's been around for like Shadowrun. Shadow had contacts way back in the day. So did Dark Conspiracy had contacts. So contacts are NPCs that would or could or maybe help you out in a certain situation.
Well, in certain games, like when you're trying to get information or you're trying to do something, like Shadowrun, the contacts are important because if you don't have those contacts, you get to pick like 3 contacts or 2 contacts.
Right, depending on
And
whatever.
And if you don't have those contacts, then you're not going to be able to have somebody be able to do something for you or help you, like a fixer to go in, or a fence, or
Right.
different kinds of things. And I think Dark Conspiracy is the same, where you need those kind of contacts to be able to get into places or get something.
Well, because
the big gun.
Because because of the situation, right?
Right.
The Dark Conspiracy is a near future heading toward apocalypse slowly. So the government doesn't really help you too much. The police is so you need contacts to get stuff done.
Versus D&D, where you just walk up and talk to random people to find stuff out.
Yeah,
right?
and I think, and the problem with D&D with contacts is probably because the D&D characters travel around so much. But in other games, in other fantasy role-playing games, or even in D&D games where it's not as world-spanning as other games, other people's campaigns, I should say, you could develop contacts. You could develop somebody like the general store merchant or owner who knows a lot of gossip.
Or if you're from Waterdeep or something, you would know more people, right?
Right. And then it's such a big city that you'd probably want to have contacts, because just to be sure that you trust the information you're getting or whatever you're getting from that NPC, and that you trust them and enough to go on
a quest,
act on what they're saying, right?
Well, D&D is a little different because usually you start out as a first level character, so you develop your contacts as you go, right?
That's true. Contacts are usually developed or made or decided on at the very beginning of your game. But you could use it in D&D. You could use it in any other game that doesn't have it included in contacts. And since Burning Wheel, I guess, but other games, contacts has really, it's used as if a game has advantages and disadvantages, or what do you call them?
I call them advantages and disadvantages.
Feats or whatever they call them. You could choose to have a lot of them choose to have contacts as one of the advantages your character can take if that's what you choose to do.
Well, if somebody really likes that idea of having contacts, you could have when you do character creation, you could just tell your players, give me 2 contacts that you have, like write them down, why you know them. You might want to give them situational information, like
where you're at,
where
you're going,
or give them a list of what kind of contacts you might need for this game or something.
Yeah,
if that's your thing.
That's true. A little direction. So contacts, circles, I think they could be very useful in any kind of role-playing game, and various genres of role-playing.
Okay, what's the next one?
And another thing is about contact circles is that it makes them feel more alive, the character, because then they have friends or acquaintances, and of course the GM could go after those contacts and kill them, hurt them, or put them in danger.
Dark there,
and put them in danger, so that motivate the player and the character to act in a certain way. Now, you got to really be careful about this because you don't want the what is it like? What was Superman? Lois
Oh.
Lane always getting in trouble or always getting hurt or kidnapped, and there he goes, and there you are, Superman trying to rescue Lois Lane all the time. It's kind of old. It would get kind of old for that player to have to deal with that. So you don't want to go and use that trope over and over again because then it gets tiresome. And killing the contact, I made a mistake of killing the contact with one player, and he had invested a lot of time in thinking up of who he was and stuff, and I felt bad. It wasn't Shadowrun, but it happens. Shadowrun's a dark world. Going on, there's this idea of clocks. Now, when it first described to me, I'm like, what the heck are they talking about? It's Blades in the Dark. It comes from Blades in the Dark. It might have come from something earlier. And from all the RPGs that I have and own, I probably don't see this one the way it is structured in this game. I will talk about other games that sort of do this, but this one's really structured. So a clock, you think of a circle, and then you divide that circle into pie parts, whatever. Like you draw a line through it, draw more lines, and then you have clocks that have certain amount of pies in it, slices of pie. And what happens is this is supposed to represent long-term goals or long-term things that the characters or characters or the group is trying to achieve. If they're trying to build a keep, that would go on a clock. And how long would that take? You could divide it to as many segments as you want. Usually, I would say is between 6-12 is about standard.
Well, that would be a standard clock.
Yes, hence the term. But you could make it even bigger, right? You could make, not bigger, but you can make it more.
A year clock?
Like 14 clock or 15 count clock. I don't know if you can do 15. I think they all have to be even numbered. But anyway, what would happen is on the players' or characters' downtime, in between missions, they would work on a project or a goal. And then if sometimes you would roll or sometimes they just needed time, and the GM keeps track of these goals and he shades in a piece of the pie with a pencil, I would suggest, because then you could always erase something when something goes awry. So I think in the Blades of the Dark, you color in, and as the players or the characters work on that thing, whatever that goal is, it gets filled in, and when the whole clock is filled in, then they have accomplished that goal. You don't seem too enthusiastic about that one.
Yeah, that seems like a lot of work.
Well, it's not a lot of work. Well, it is a lot of work, and sometimes things do take a lot of work. Erecting or making a fort is a lot of work.
Okay.
Right? Setting up a really good computer firewall is not something that you're going to be able to do overnight.
All I'm thinking is that might be no offense to anyone who likes clocks, but that might be something that you could just go, that'll take you 2 years to do.
Okay.
You set your men to working on it or something. Or
Well, I think it's just a visual representation of doing things and seeing how much you've accomplished as a player and as a GM too. As a GM, it's a tool like, oh yeah, they're working on this. There's something similar. Some games don't really deal with characters' downtime. D&D doesn't really care about your downtime other than healing or whatever. But even now, healing is ridiculously easy. And it's a little bit
amount of time that it takes.
Right. You
a
heal.
simple rest, a long rest.
Yeah, short rests, long rest, and you heal all your damage.
All I'm saying is, it kind of reminds me of the travel montage, right? Where you can tediously make the players roll every single day for 5 things, or you could just say, okay, you've gone 3 days. The trip is 12 days or something like that. You've gone 3 days. Everybody do a travel roll or whatever, if there is a travel roll.
Right.
Or you could just skip it and say nothing happens.
Or
to move the game along, you're there now. You traveled. You met no resistance upon the road.
You have to make a bushcraft roll every night.
Well, and certain games that's important, right?
Yeah.
The bushcraft, whether you can find but you do the same thing in D&D. Who's going to look for there's like a roll to find a good place to
camp.
Usually it's the ranger or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, and in D and D you
pick
could do that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's explicitly said in the
No, but
rules.
in some games it is.
You're right. Like
Especially
Dragonbane, we just played Dragonbane.
Yeah, you have to do that because you're in the middle of freaking nowhere.
Right.
And you're not like you are kind of heroic, but you're very squishy in Dragonbane versus D&D where you have a lot more hit points, right?
Right.
And you're more of heroes like.
Right, and there's less. What is it? There's less chance of you getting healed. There's no magic potions.
Yeah.
There's. I forget. I honestly don't remember how much you heal. I don't remember how long it takes for you to heal one hit point of damage. But anyway, but I know that it's a pretty brutal game because I think hit points are capped at a certain number, and
there's only
weapons do a lot of damage, and the only thing that saves you is armor. And some people don't have armor, just the way it is. But you're right. I think.
Well, because you're talking about clocks, the idea about time and the trap. That's where I got into the idea of a travel montage because there's different ways you do it, right?
Well, I was going to use the example of the downtime in the One Ring, where you basically don't explore, you don't do anything over the winter because it's freaking cold. It's too cold to do stuff. You do stuff that would help the community, like build a new barn or whatever that is, and that's something that you can achieve on the winter phase. I think even
Pendragon has a winter phase
has a winter phase. So I think I forget what they call it. They don't go, I'm not sure that the One Ring calls it a winter phase, but what happens is that the important part of why this is important in the One Ring is the way of regaining hope by working in the community and doing something that will help the community. You yourself are gaining the benefit of getting hope back, and hope is a very precious commodity in the One Ring. So I kind of thought about that when they were talking about clocks and the off time stuff.
Well, the way you described it was you're going to build a fort. That doesn't sound like an off time thing.
Yeah, it is. It is because like you as a group. Well, in Blades of the Dark, you are a group of scoundrels, right? You're like a gang, and you do jobs and stuff like that. And it doesn't leave you a lot of time to be building a fort or whatever, renovating an abandoned building to your needs. Make sure that it's guarded, make sure that there's no holes in the walls and stuff like that. So on the off time, that's when you work on stuff like that because you're not getting paid money and you're working on your own time kind of thing. So that's why the clock thing is interesting. And I was thinking about the travel montage in the One Ring. You basically roll every day for stuff, but that's because traveling in Middle Earth is dangerous.
Well, same with Dragonbane, right? You're in a place that is dangerous.
It is dangerous. It's wild.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people forget that just walking from one town to another in a medieval fantasy setting would be dangerous. There's bandits, there's monsters, and all kinds of things that could happen that could really mess up your day. Like if you were driving, you get out of your car and you twist your ankle. Oh, it may hurt a lot, but you can get back in your car and drive into the other 60, 100, 300 miles. But if you twist your foot 20, 30 miles from a town and you're walking, that makes things a little different. Clocks. I think it's a very interesting thing. I think you could definitely use that in any other game that you are running as a GM. Now, paint the scene. Now, this one's interesting. I'm not sure where it came from, and I think it's pretty neat. So, but I think it only works with players that are really invested in the game and are, they're not good at improvisation, but have a little bit of a improvisational tact. So what you do is ask all the players to add detail to a new location or scenario. So you start the game, you explain what's going on, and they're like, okay. And I think this happens in what game? I don't remember what game, but they say don't tell the players what they're doing at the beginning of the game. Ask them, this is what's happening. What's your character doing? Or even like in the adventure, like like tell them what's happening. And one time I was gonna run. I did run, but I didn't use this technique, or maybe I did. I don't remember how successful it was, but it was the carnival roll game, and I don't even tell them that they're there. I just say, what happens? I describe a scene. It's spring, whatever, blah blah blah. I'm getting really flowery with my speech that nobody paid attention to, and there's a dead body near a trash bin, and then I ask each character, "Why are you there?" That's painting the scene because you're giving them the power to come up with whatever they want to come up with, and why they're there. They could be passing by. They're looking for this girl. Blah 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 blah. So it gives a lot of what was that, player agency? Or was that what it was called?
Player agency?
Yeah. It gives the player agency to do stuff or include stuff in the scene, and that's what they call painting the scene, because you're giving the players the ability to add stuff to the scene
Instead of telling everybody what is in
what is it down to the last detail. Now, Feng Shui says this, like when you say describe a location, don't describe everything, and don't use a map, right? The whole idea,
Right.
Just describe what it is. Tell people what it is,
and allow people to interject stuff that they want there.
Right.
So, and I know we've talked about it before. Your favorite one is the construction site,
Yes.
right? That allows the players to, whatever they think is in a construction site, you just say it's a construction site, and then you say, what are you doing?
The players have the options to throw stuff in, like, well, is there?
I see the bulldozer over there. Can I use it?
I see the big crane. Is it still there?
I see the nail gun. Is it plugged in?
Correct, and that's what I'm talking about. And this one takes it a little bit further because you do it right up front with the players.
I think a lot of GMs do that. A lot of times, I think it has to do with, like, for D&D, I think it has a lot to do with if you're fighting something, or what do you see, or if you're in a dungeon, you walk into the room and.
I think in D&D not the problem, but it's like the GM has to come up with everything a lot of times. And the players, at least...
They don't have... I mean, they could allow the players to come up with
They can, and that's something that's new-ish, but I'm not sure that it's in the rules that say, let the players come up with stuff that they see.
Well, that's what we're not talking about the rules. We're talking about
breaking the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's definitely something you can include in your D&D game. In fact, this is easy. You can include this because there's no mechanical benefit.
Yeah.
You're just allowing the players to
be invested in the scene.
Use their imagination.
Yeah.
So which I think is pretty cool.
I think we do that. I think you do that in Shadowrun too.
Yes.
Because you're a lot of times inside of a corporate building, and your idea of what does the office look like, or where are things, right?
Right.
What could you use as a weapon?
There's always that too. What can I use to my advantage? Right. All right. So that's pretty cool, and that's something easily that you can use across any RPG. And this one, because there's no mechanical, you don't have to roll dice. You're just asking the players to put something in the scene. So paint the scene. It's pretty interesting.
What's the next one?
Minions.
Are we talking Minions from the movie?
They are pretty cool and they are pretty cute, but no, we're talking about NPCs. Usually in Feng Shui, they're nameless.
Mooks, the mooks.
Mooks, right? They're nameless. They go down easy. They're not. They don't have a lot of hit points, depending on the game if it has hit points, and other things like that.
Yes, mooks should probably go down in one shot.
Yes, in Feng Shui, they go down if you hit them by. They have a target number. If you hit them by over 5, they go down no matter what. They don't have hit points and stuff like that. And you decide if you kill them or if you just take them out of the fight. And it depends on how you are fighting them. I mean, you could be fighting them with a sword and still just take them out of the fight without killing them. Depends how bloody you want your scene to be, or how deadly you want to seem like.
If you're shooting a gun at them, it's probably going to kill them.
Well, you can shoot them, and you can you can shoot somebody.
I shot them all in the knee.
Oh, not in the knee, but you can shoot them in non-fatal areas.
That's what I'm saying.
So
the knee is in a fatal area, but you can't walk if you're shot in the knee.
But you can shoot them in the upper chest, like near your arm. You know how they
Always
in the movies, he gets
yeah.
shot there
Yeah.
last days and days.
And it just goes right through you, and there's no problems.
Right. You just got to plug the hole. Stuff like that. And then somebody was referring to this when they would use this when the player characters are trying to, like, let's say they're sneaking into a camp or even better, like a castle, and they have guards and they want to take out the guards. But the guard, let's say, has 20 hit points. Immediately that's going to be very difficult for you to take out a guard with one shot without them making noise. And so they say, well, just lower the hit points to not even lower, just make them one hit point thing, because you have the advantage of like sneaking up on them and stuff. And I think the rogue in the old days used to have like backstab damage, right? If they were able to backstab, surprise somebody, they would do 4 times the damage of their weapon.
I think they still do have something like that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily exactly that, but yeah.
I don't think they have to surprise them anymore. They just
I have
I
backstabbing
don't think
in,
they even.
in Dragon
okay.
Bane.
Oh, there you go. Oh, in Dragon Bane?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know you were that kind of character.
I'm a thief.
I didn't know that. Aren't you a little short person?
A halfling.
That's terrible. I always thought they were such good folk. Anyway, yeah, so bad guys, you want them to go down fast and easy. And I think this is more of a cinematic action, cinematic idea. Like in the movies, you see one, like John Wick, except he shoots them all in the head, but so I can see that. But see, he's taking them out in one shot, and he's killing them. Like that's classic feng shui, right?
Yeah, absolutely. John Wick is classic feng shui. That is like
the gunplay, fu stuff, and they're shooting at him, and he's able to predict the shot and dodge out of the way most of the time. Yes, exactly.
Although he gets hit by a lot of bullets.
Yes, and and reloading is super easy and simple. Well, not they actually try to count the bullets.
And John Wick, I think he just picks up other guns.
Yes,
a lot of movies do that.
Yes,
which translates into games like like feng shui and stuff.
Definitely.
If you need a gun and it's a gun battle going on, there's always a gun available. It's just whether it has bullets or not and that kind of stuff. And that's up to you, right?
Yeah. And I think what happens is this comes from the idea of finding guns, of reloading and stuff. Comes from the days when people would fire all these bullets and go, I never saw that guy reload, right? And it broke that credibility. Okay, I know this is an action flick. I know that he's the hero, but he still should have to freaking reload. There's no way that pistol shoots 30 rounds, right? It doesn't have the extended.
And it is more realistic that you would pick up the gun that somebody.
Oh, the way, and then I guess what's interesting about John Wick and Keanu Reeves is that at one point he does this, like, I don't know if you ever noticed it, but he to take out the empty magazine, he flicks his wrist to the side, and with that action, he's able to expend that magazine, and then he slaps the new one instead of having to physically take out the other one and put another one in. Kind of like you have the magazine in your hand and you're pulling one out. So he does this. He unlocks it. He flicks his wrist to the side, and it ejects the magazine, and he slaps another one in.
And that has to do with the fact of...
and he came up with that, supposedly.
Whether that is realistic or not, at least it gives you the idea that he's reloading it, right?
It's realistic because people have tried it, and
and
works.
They could do it, yeah.
Yes. So that was like a big deal because I was like, oh, that is pretty... And it looks really cool.
Right.
And then like somebody was going... I think the stuntman coordinator, or I don't know who was on the set, goes, what the hell did you just do? And he goes, I just make sure that it's, I don't know if you put oil in it or whatever, that it slides in and out real easy. And he goes, and it just, that action, it allows you to expand the magazine. He goes, we're using that. And so in fact, if you watch any John Wick movie, he does that over and over. I mean, not over and over in the same scene, but he does that quite a few times because they do make him reload.
Right.
Even though in Feng Shui you probably wouldn't have to, but anyway. So what we were talking about, minions, yeah, they should be plentiful, and they should should be able to mow them down.
This is what I always think, and when we're playing D&D, and you run into a bunch of goblins or kobolds.
Right.
That they should be easy for your party to take out. But it doesn't always happen because, like in 5th edition, they have more hit points than they did before or something.
No, I don't think so. I mean, some kobolds are the real I mean, in D&D, they used to have. I don't know if this is true. This is what I remember in my head. I remember looking at kobolds, and they have like half a hit point, right? Which I don't know why they didn't bother, but they usually have 1 through 3. I think that might have been goblins, or goblins had 1 through 6.
I think the goblins have 1 through 6 because I know the goblins that one of the times we faced goblins, they all had like 6 hit points, and someone at the table goes, "Goblins shouldn't have that many hit points," and I don't remember who it was, but I thought it was hilarious because then I thought about mooks, right? You should be able to,
Right.
if it's a minion, right? You should be able to get through the minions to get to the big boss, as the
Right.
boys would say.
I would agree, and I think this happened. It was like a table rule that I made up, or I don't know, a game rule. But at one point, I was like, "Yeah, you guys are pretty high level. You guys, when you get attacked by goblins, it's like a swing. Like what is his name in the Lord of the Rings when Sauron has that big old
Oh
mace?
yeah,
He just like battling, hitting 4 or 5 guys in a row, and they go flying. That's the way it should be in a.
or Legolas, killing with his arrows, right?
Oh,
As
yeah.
he's killing the
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah.
Uruk-hai as
Yeah,
they're
left
coming
and
at
right.
him, right?
Well, in that scene, all those Uruk-hai are like 1 hit point minions.
Except for when
The big bad guy with the
well,
black
the
hair.
big bad guy, but also you notice that when Aragorn is trying to kill them, it's a lot harder for him. It's a lot harder for him than it is for Legolas.
Well, it was a lot harder for him because he's doing hand-to-hand combat, and there was a whole freaking bunch of them,
Yeah.
right? And then of course Legolas and the little guy
Gimli.
show up and help him, and by that time they're kind of running away because they're following the hobbits. So I and you know how much I love that scene where they're following and running and chopping down those guys
Yeah.
like lumber as they keep running forward as they hear the horn of Gondor, right? Classic scene. We just saw the movie again a week ago or so, but yeah, so that's the minions going down easily and quickly, and it should be. I mean, I guess it's kind of fun in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could put the minions into any game.
Any game.
And I think that's a good idea. Like if you're sneaking into something, except like it depends on the game, right? Like if it's Shadowrun and you're trying to sneak into a corporate building with lots of security, you're gonna need to roll something to make sure whether you make it through or not. Because at any time you could accidentally trip something.
Well, and then also like the level of security or the level of
How good is your hacker? That kind of thing.
there's that.
Yeah.
But like if the security guards, if they're guarding a stuffer shack, they're not going to have a lot of hit points. They're just your rent a
But if they're guarding a nuclear device or something,
right,
then
or
they're
if
gonna
it's like high secret corporate vault, you're not going to have some minion.
they're going to be the guys with lots of hit
yes,
points, so it's going to be harder to
Right,
say,
but
I should be able to take out that minion, right? Because he's not really a
no
minion.
problem. Yes,
He's
yes.
named.
Right. Agent number 1. So the other one is, and I haven't never heard of this because I don't own Mothership. I think it's Mothership. Is unknown death saves. So let's say D&D has death saves. A lot of games have picked up this idea of death saves. You roll the death saves to see if you live or
Right.
dead or dying. But in this case, you use a cup, and I know you hate dice cups, but you roll on a cup and you don't reveal the number or the roll until another player gets that character. So if that character's alone, like my character was alone when he went off,
Yeah.
got critically hit by 2 freaking
Skeletons.
giant skeletons, and reduced me to 0 hit points. And
That was your fault for going off by yourself.
I had a lot of hit points, and I thought I could handle anything. And my armor class was very high. But anyway, regardless, I'm not bitter. Regardless, I was supposed to make some death saves probably. I don't remember if I did or not.
I think with someone we got to you before.
Well, but I would have to make a death save. So in that case, I would roll this, whatever it was, whatever the dice is, and I would put the cup on, and nobody would know if I was alive, dead, or dying.
you're like Schrodinger's cat.
And then exactly until some character got to that person, then they would reveal, oh, he's dead, Jim, or he's barely hanging on. So I think that's interesting. I think that really amps up the what is it?
The excitement, the adrenaline.
Adrenaline and
Well, I know that
anxiety because Because when you see somebody go down in the game,
That's usually when
everybody
people
panics.
No, they. I don't think it's called panic. I think it's when someone goes down in a game. That's when the other people step up to get to that person, right?
I would use the scene of Frodo gets speared by the
Yes.
cave troll, and then they just go hog wild and kill whatever they got to do to try to get to Frodo, whose death save is under the cup because they don't know until Aragorn gets to him.
Right.
And
So that's an interesting. And when we were playing with the boys a lot, Pathfinder and 5th edition, I know that if I ever went down, like somebody like that is when they would they're over there fighting different monsters, but then if somebody in the party went down, they would stop what they were doing, not stop, they would kill them faster and get to that person, right?
They would make a concerted effort to try to reach you, and get you back up.
Yeah,
correct. Interesting idea. I think it ramps up the tension, that's the word, in the game and the anxiety and whatever, and
that is
because even the character who rolled doesn't know.
Right. I really don't like dice cups. I'm just saying. So I can.
Okay, this is getting a little long, so let's go on. Push mechanic. I first encountered this in Tales from the Loop and everything else that is Free League. Basically, you're allowed to push your roll, which means pick up all your dice and re-roll them to try to get success. And if you don't succeed, you usually get like complication of fate. It's not good. So it's a risky maneuver, but in a pinch, when you really want to try to accomplish something, that's when you would push.
I'm not sure that translates into other games.
You could do it in D&D. You can do it in the.
You'd have to have a consequence for it, right?
In Alien, in a lot of games like Free League, they change it a little bit.
Yeah.
If you succeed, you don't get a complication.
Yeah.
But other games, if you get more ones than what is it? More ones than sixes, then you succeed, but you still get a complication. But even though you don't push your roll in 2D20 system, if you roll a 20, you have a complication, and you can still succeed. So I think it's an interesting idea, and I think you can more or less use it in almost every RPG system, almost. Because I don't know.
I was just going to say that I would agree, except that I think some people would have a problem with that, with you porting that to like a D&D system. They go, well, that's not in the rules, that kind of thing.
You know what I say to that? Too bad. I like it. Benny's. Now, Benny's is synonymous with Savage Worlds, but quite a few RPGs coming after that definitely use them. They're fate points.
Yeah.
They're
and you can use
momentum.
that. You can use that in any game. You could just hand everybody 2 chips.
In fact, they use it in D&D. They call it the hero points or something like that. So it's made its way into almost quite a few. And I was going to say almost all, but quite a few RPGs out there have incorporated some sort of mega currency, they call it, to be able to save the character's bacon in a pinch.
Yeah.
And I think that's something you can add. Yeah, I have Year Zero, 2D20, and Fate are all things that have this kind of mechanic. Another interesting mechanic comes from D&D, advantage and disadvantage. Now, this is, instead of having all these numbers you have to add and subtract to see what the bonus is, you say, oh, you have an advantage. Oh, that's a disadvantage. You roll
an extra
D&D.
die.
Yeah, two D20s to see what you hit. Advantage, you get the higher number. A disadvantage, you get the lower number. It reduces the number of all this accounting that a lot of people didn't like. But I must say, I kind of like the accounting. The counting. Oh, I get a +2 for plus 10.
You can play Pathfinder if you want that.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know about the new Pathfinder.
I do like the advantage disadvantage one where you roll the 2 dice, because then you don't have to think about anything else. You just know, oh, I have an advantage. I get to roll 2 die and take the higher. If it's a disadvantage, it's the lower. I like that idea.
Super simple. I think other games, Dragonbane has kind of used some of this.
You get a bane or a boon.
A bane.
Yeah.
And depending on what the situation, I forget why do you have a boon or a bane? But anyway, how you get them, I forgot. But if you have a boon or a bane is good, a bane is bad. So you basically are rolling with advantage or disadvantage.
Yeah.
So I think it's been incorporated in a lot of newer games coming out, and I think it's pretty cool. I think it just, if you don't want a lot of number crunching or figuring out numbers, it's super simple and works pretty decently. I'm gonna go with slot based inventory. Now, in the old days, you'd have to see how much things weighed, how much you could carry, and then maybe your backpack alleviates some of that. Well, you could carry 1.25 times what your lifting capacity if you have a backpack. Oh my God, how boring! And then you have to pick how many pounds am I carrying, or some of you kilograms, weirdos, and figure out if you could carry something and not be exhausted, not be tired, or whatever. So instead of all that nonsense, they came up with slot. Now this, I don't know how long ago somebody did this, but it's definitely used in this game called Mouse Ritter, which you play mice, and you have slots. Like you have a slot in your backpack. You can carry 4 things and then 5 things.
That's how in Dragonbane. That's how it is. That's what we were
Yes.
playing last night,
Yes.
and you can carry half of your strength. The 4 things. So I only had a strength of 8, so I could carry 4 things.
Yeah.
I had 4 slots to put stuff in.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have
And I
slots,
had
but
it.
it has things.
Well, it was 4 lines. That's what I got.
Well, in other games, in Mouse Ritter, you don't even have to write anything down. There's like these little like squares on your character sheet, and they give you like, oh, here's an item, and they physically give you a little chit or a card, and you put in the slot where they fit.
Uh-huh.
So like it fit in your backpack, but it won't fit in your pocket, and you have like 1 in your pocket, you have 1 in your backpack, or 4 in your backpack, and then you have whatever, something on your head.
It's just a different way to
do inventory.
to do your inventory.
And it's visual, so a lot of people find that a lot easier to comprehend.
I like that better than trying to figure out if I could carry it or not. If it's gonna, armor is one of the things in D&D that drives me crazy. With it's gonna slow you down or it's
Yes.
gonna make noise. So I'm like, I just want the leather
Be
armor
negative.
that isn't gonna cause me any problems.
It could be a negative to your agility rolls. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Usage dice.
I don't even know what that is.
So instead of counting your arrows, right? Oh, I have 20 arrows. The different mechanics are in play, but I forget what the name of his World War II game was. But Mark Hunt came out. No, it was in his game, and he had a usage die. And what happens is, you have an item or stuff that has ammo or whatever, a gun, a jeep or whatever, and basically, usage die says you can get everything you need up until you roll a 1, and then it gets used up. So, but there's other, like a jeep would not do that, right? Let's say you start off with a D10, so you roll a 1. Now you keep rolling the D8 every time you use that. Every time after you use that, if you roll a 1 on that D8, you roll a D6 and then a D4. And if you roll a 1 on your D4, it goes kaput. So I think it's super easy to figure out. You don't have to keep. Same thing with arrows. You don't have to go count your arrows and all that stuff. You have a D6 on arrows.
I think it totally depends on the game you're playing, and if it's a game where you need to keep track of your bullets or your arrows, and how strict the GM is going to be about that, right? And it kind of depends on your players and what you want to achieve. If you want everybody to maintain their inventory in a certain way, then you're going to be more strict about that.
Right.
But if you're like me, you're like, okay, if it's reasonable that you can carry it, then you can carry it. If it's not reasonable, please don't try to do it.
Right.
Because then at the table, somebody's going to go, well, how are you doing that? And then you're going to have to make a decision on, obviously you're being unreasonable in what you can or cannot carry.
I have the whole mechanics, the garage on my back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this usage die is real simple. Like I said, you could do the step dies and go down, or you could just say, on a 1 on whatever you roll, you run out of arrows or you bullets and stuff like that.
For people like me, I don't really like that because it's something that takes away from actual play time, right? You are having to account for things.
Well, sooner or later, you have play time.
It takes away it adds something to like you're accounting for it, right?
Well,
Versus you're just going out and doing whatever you're supposed to be doing. I'm just saying.
I understand. No, I understand. But what the idea is that as you play, you don't have to keep track of bullets. You don't have to check it. Oh, I spent. We went 20 miles. This thing gets 5 miles to the gallon. We have a quarter tank or 2 gallons left. You know, that kind of stuff. So that's what that inventory usage guide does. It deals. The character, and especially the player, doesn't have to worry about all this accounting and keeping tabs and stuff. Of course, if you're unlucky and don't like dice, then you definitely don't like the system. And you could roll yourself, and just hopefully the GM trusts you, and you're a trustworthy player that you don't have to be seen to make sure you roll right. But there are people out there who like,
cheat on their dice rolls, which is
fudging.
That's where Roll20 is nice. Everybody can see what everybody.
That's true. It keeps everybody honest.
Yeah.
So those are all things that you can use from one game to another, and either makes it easier, makes it more fun, or however you want to look at these things. I think a lot of these can easily be used in different games. Now, I'm not going to say that I would use any of these in every single role-playing game that I run, but some of them are pretty much I could, like Contacts. Definitely I could use that in almost every game I run, no matter what genre.
So hopefully these ideas help you with the next game you run or some of the things that you like to play.
Yes.
There you go. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene.
And you have a good day.